it crossing another road. This road is called Pump Road. Anytime that a train comes to a road, it has to blow the whistle or horn. In this case, they blow the whistle or horn, two long, a short and a long, which means that they road crossing. Every time two long for the short and a long is a road crossing. Three short is reverse. Two short is forward. A long is short and a long is five short is one out. Longer speed and hit the trees up the railroad track. look over here to the right through the trees, you see that mountain right across from us here. That's how far they had to drag that cable. Drag it from here all the way to that mountain. When they got over on that mountain, they would find a great big subsidiary called meadow tree. And they would drag the cable around it and place the cable up, which would raise it into the air. Then, those loggers would take chokers and wrap those around the tree, connecting them into the skidder line, which would raise those trees up to 500 feet in the air as they came across with the mountain across from us to right here. From one location, a skidder ran in my tree in every direction for over a mile away. Once they ran out of timber in that area, they had to move the skidder, which was kind of a big ordeal, but it only took a day. They had to break the skidder down and then pull it down out of the siding. Then they would also rip up the railroad tracks that it was sitting on and reuse those at a new location further up the mountain. Once they had all those trees up here next to the track, a diesel log loader, like the one back at Whittaker, or a steam log loader, would stack the logs in piles according to their length and size next to the track. Then they were ready for the log trains to come up the mountain and get those trees. The log train would come up the mountain, pushing as many as 13 cars, but 9 cars on average. The log train would push those 9 cars up the mountain, and when it got to the skidder, it would pick up an extra car that sat with the skidder that had a bar-car log loader on it. The bar-car log loader is also steam operated and it runs on rails just like the train does, except its rails were mounted directly on top of the flat car on which it sat. Every car on the log train had rails mounted on top of them so the loader could move back and forth on the car. And then there would be a temporary rail placed between 2 cars so the loader could move from one car to the next. Starting at the front of the train, like where I'm at, the loader would start to load the train with logs, 1 car at a time, moving back and forth the locomotive with every move. When it had the entire train loaded, the engine would cut the car off with the loader on it, and it back over next to the skidder, and then come back into the train. Then they would take that log train down the mountain. There was a washout that happened from a flash flood. Water poured out of the rock and completely washed the whole hillside away right here. The tracks were taking 16 feet or more in the air with nothing underneath. Something the entire operation of 1996 was built in several $1 million to do that. When it first happened, really workers laid plywood down between the rails, and it went out over this chasm to inspect the damage. Like I said, it took the entire operation in 1996 to fix this area. Several tons of rock. On the hillside straight across from us, you can see a bunch of dead trees over there. Those are hemlock trees. Also, if you look back to the right, you'll see a field down there in the valley. That's where the tunnels were earlier. Those dead hemlock trees have been killed out by an insect that we have around here called woolly adelgia. An invasive creature. I don't know where it came from or why, but it's killing all of our hemlock trees out around here. Some places there's a whole mountainside of every tree is dead. But it's really put a burden on West Virginia and surrounding states. Hopefully they'll get that figured out and get those things stopped. This area is called Old Spruce. There used to be a town here originally called Spruce in the early 1900s. Eventually that town became too big and there was no room yet left to develop. So they decided to move the town a mile and a half down the track here to the left. And they rebuilt the town, renaming this area. overlook going up the mountain today. This is one of the best ones too. If you look at the far distance over there, you'll see railroad tracks. The far distance. Then over to the left, you'll see another set of railroad tracks. It's a double leaf line, what used to be the Western Maryland Railroad. That's what the Salamander runs on nowadays. Also, there's a big concrete foundation down there, which was the old engine house where they housed the locomotives at. And there's a street down there, which is the cheaper source of the East River. That is Spruce, which used to be a very busy place. The last house was 2 people living in Spruce up until the 80s was allowed. Lunch very much like what you had today. They put When those guys returned home from work that afternoon, he had supper on the table. Like I said, they had a lot of really good food, and they had fresh food too, such as steaks and chicken and pork chops and fresh fish. Once a week on the log train, they would bring up a supply car to resupply the cook with fresh food and ice to keep the food fresh. Anybody that I ever talked to that knew my great-grandfather said he was probably one of the best cooks that ever walked this earth. I've heard stories about how my great-grandfather would take a 100-pound bag of flour and pour water right into the bag, mix that whole 100-pound bag of flour into biscuits. Then when breakfast was over that day, there wouldn't even be one biscuit left. They would eat it all. So many people he had to fed. Before my great-grandfather was a cook up on the mountain for these loggers, he was a cook down on the river for the riders of the flood. Before rail logging became prevalent in this area, we used to get the logs out in the springtime when the river would flood. Hopefully 4 to 5 times a year the river would get high enough when they could float the logs down the river all the way to Rockford, West Virginia, where there was a big sawmill at. Those guys would live in floating houses called arks and chauffeur the logs along so they would not get jammed up along the way. My great-grandfather, he lived in one of those arks and cooked for those loggers as well. But he was hardly ever home to see his family of over 13 children. Not over 13 children, exactly 13 children. My granddad, he always told me that my great-granddad, he never seen his father but maybe twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And when he did, my great-grandfather would have to walk 27 miles home to see his family. That's why on the weekends, most of the time, he just stayed in the camp. He helped tend to the fires and keep everything in working order. This location is called the Y, W-Y-E. It's named after the shape that it makes. The Y is a place where we can turn the train around. However, we're not going to turn our train around today. We don't really ever use the Y anymore. Once in a while, we use the Y to maybe turn a locomotive around for a photo shoot or maybe pass another train right there. But that's just about the extent of what we use the Y for. If we were going to use the Y, it's pretty easy how it works. The Y does the same thing that a turntable does. Only a Y, you can turn a whole train around in a Y. On a turntable, you can only turn one car at a time around. If we use the Y, all we have to do is pull up into one leg of the Y, then back out to the other leg of the Y, back onto the main line, and that would flip our whole train around. Then the locomotive would be up front where I'm at, and vice versa. Also in this area, we start to go downhill. For about the next mile, we're on a 3% downhill grade. You'll notice there's a brakeman turning the wheel on the first 2 cars. We're doing this to keep the slack pushed back against the engine. Between every car on the train, there's about 1 foot of slack. So in our train today, we have about 5 feet of slack. We don't want that slack to run out. If the slack did run out of the train, anybody that was standing up would probably fall down and maybe even get hurt. So as long as you play your cards right today, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. Also, from time to time, you'll see us leaning out over the side of the train and looking underneath it. But there's no reason to get concerned. We're just looking at the wheels to make sure they're still rolling. Now, I know it sounds funny, but because we're turning the brake wheel so hard, it is possible, in fact, it's inevitable, that we will lock the wheels up from time to time. When that happens, the wheels aren't even rolling anymore, they're just sliding on the rail. If they slid for very long, it'll cause the wheels to get a flat spot. We don't want that. But if the wheels slide, it's not a real big deal. As long as they don't slide for like a mile or something, we'll be alright. We keep a pretty close watch on them. If we catch a wheel sliding, all we do is we back off the brake wheel a little bit at a time, just until that brake loosens up enough for the wheel to start to back down before the train starts to gain any speed and the flag doesn't run out. The brakeman's job used to be the most dangerous job on the entire railroad during the walking days. During those days, there would only be 1 or 2 brakemen for an entire train of up to 13 cars. The brakeman would have to run on top of the log and jump from car to car, climbing down those logs to operate the brake wheel, which stood horizontally instead of vertically like they do now. Also, the brakes were not as foolproof back then. Their brake wheel, which was called a stick winder, was a really simple device. It was just a brake wheel with a bar that went down, and the more you turned the bar, the more the chain tightened up around it. In order to get more leverage on their brake wheel, the brakeman would use a brake club, or a brake stick, or a breaker bar, or a hickey. It had several different names for that tool, but it was a very unforgiving tool. Once in a while, the brakeman would be using the hickey to tighten the brake wheel down, and then for no reason at all, the brake wheel would spin out of control, causing the hickey to fly around one full rotation and hit the brakeman, knocking him down off the train and sometimes underneath it. Several brakemen lost their life on this railroad. But thankfully, since we became the Scenic Railroad, we focus more on safety than we do on profit. In fact, since we became the Scenic Railroad in 1963, there have been 0 accidents on the railroad. Knock on wood. But you'll see us doing this all the way back to CASS, except for this one little stretch right here. This is the only way we can get down to CASS, is by using brakemen. It's the way it's been done for over 100 years, and it's the way it'll continue to be done. People often ask me, well, how come you guys don't use your air brakes to go down off the mountain? Do you not have air brakes? Well, we do have air brakes. All trains do nowadays. It's the law. But we seldomly use our air brakes. Once in a while, if there's like a tree down on the tracks ahead of the train, I can use the air brakes to stop the train so we don't hit that tree. But that's only in case of emergency. That's about the extent of what we use the air brakes for. The reason being is a really simple reason. When you're going down the mountain, and if you were using the air brakes to go down the mountain and a wheel walks up on one of the cars, in order for the engineer to get that wheel going again, you would have to turn the brakes on the entire train, which would cause the train to get in a runaway situation of which there would be no returning of. So we brake the cars individually using the hand brake. That way, if one of the cars locks up, we can turn it loose separately, and the rest of the train will still hold back. We're going to blow the whistle again in just a second. Except she didn't punch in Cass Scenic Railroad State Park, but she punched in with Cass Scenic Railroad State Forest. And apparently that brings out this road. The guy said, I knew something was up when we had to drive through a river in a 5-foot deep mud hole in order to get the Cass. I kept thinking to myself, man, how does anybody ever get the Cass? Thank goodness we brought the Jeep. No wonder we haven't heard of this place till this year. Well, needless to say, his wife never stopped using the GPS ever again. And in a minute, we're going to be going around a right-hand curve, and then immediately after we'll go into a left-hand curve. There's a water tank sitting down in the middle of the left-hand curve. But once we start through that left-hand curve, we will be on the steepest grade anywhere in the world. As far as the standard gauge railroad, no assistance from anything. We get up here under our power and our wheel load. It's very impressive. 12% grade. The grade goes from 12 back down to 10 and then back up to 12 all the way to the top of the mountain. If you want to get a video of the engine working really hard, this is the best place in the world to get a video of a Shay locomotive working like it was designed to do, going up extremely steep grades. Get on the left-hand side of the train, look back towards the locomotive, and go ahead and press record. office